Hey everybody, welcome to our downtown studios. This is Fight News Now Extra, and I am your host, John Ramdeen. As always, Robin Black will join me to chat about what's going on in the sport. In the news today, the Count has his next assignment. The Bellator president talks about a top free agent, and the Reebok deal could prevent the return of a former champion. According to MMA Fighting, the UFC has put together a sensational middleweight tilt as top-ranked Michael Bisping will meet the talented Gegard Mousasi in the main event of an upcoming Fight Night card scheduled for February 27th in London, England. Bisping garnered 2 victories in 2015 and is 3-1 in his past 4, with his only loss coming to title challenger Luke Rockhold. Since entering the UFC, Mousasi has established a 4-3 record and is looking to rebound from a KO loss to Uriah Hall. Former UFC lightweight champion Benson Henderson has become one of MMA's hottest free agents. BJJ black belt has apparently already been offered $200,000 from Korean promotion Road FC. John Pollock caught up with Bellator president Scott Coker, who expressed interest in the MMA lab pupil.
If Henderson is a free agent, we definitely would like to talk to him, as we would, a lot of the free agents or if a fighter becomes free. So, to me, yes, definitely. And, he had a great win over the weekend. And, when he's a free agent, I'm sure my guys will be reaching out and talking to him.
In a recent interview, former UFC 170-pound champion and poster boy George St-Pierre talked about the current deal the UFC has with sports apparel giant Reebok. The welterweight great said that he is unsure if it will prevent his return because his current contract is not the same as many fighters under the Super banner. The French-Canadian stated that it is the responsibility of his management to get the green light from all parties before he gets back into the cage. Next week, we have got you covered for all the action going down in Las Vegas, Nevada. We are previewing 3 shows, and then we will bring you the post-fight press conference from UFC 194, the main event. Jose Aldo taking on Conor McGregor. We're going to be here in studio and in Las Vegas to bring you the best coverage. Happy to be joined by Mr. Robin Black. George St-Pierre, unsure right now because of the landscape of the whole Reebok deal, if he's going to make his return to mixed martial arts. We've heard some of the legends of MMA that step away. It's like, maybe I'll get back in there. I still have a desire to get back in there. You retired from mixed martial arts, but I remember shortly after you retired, you still had that itch. Because, again, you were robbed of your last fight. But the longer you stay away from the sport, does it become easier? We heard Vanderlei Silva, as his coach, saying, you know what, he's been away too long. He's probably never going to fight again. Is that what happens?
Well, I fought at a infinitely lower level than all of these people, and I still want to do it. I didn't have the glory that they have, the money that they make, all of those things. I just had fighting, and I loved it. I still think in my mind, maybe on my 50th birthday, I could get in there and fight some guy. It's still in there. I think, though, it does start to fade. Paulie Malignaggi, I can never say that guy's name. Great analyst, though, a brilliant boxer. He wrote a piece about coming back. And in that piece, he talked about how people don't understand the fire. And yes, you have to be selfish to go do it and all that stuff. And that is a fascinating insight into these guys who he doesn't need it. He's making crazy money as an analyst, and he's damn good at it. He has a whole life. He doesn't need it. But that passion and that fact that that fire will never go away is not the reason to come back. Because even the day that you retire, and when you're 60, and when you're 70, you will still feel that. So it has to be evidence-based. It has to be factual. It has to be looking at all the other aspects of your life and making an informed decision. You can't make it based on the fire, because that fire's never going to leave.
The one thing about George St-Pierre, he talked about it, because not everybody that gets into mixed martial arts gets in it to become a martial artist. The goal is to make some money. I'm a sports athlete. We talked to Joe Benavidez, who said, once I'm done competing in mixed martial arts, there's no going back to the gym to learn jiu-jitsu and to work on my Thai boxing skills. That's going to be one area.
Work on his barbecuing
Exactly.
skills.
He's going to work on his barbecuing skills. That's an area of my life that's going to be gone. George St-Pierre wants to improve as a martial artist. Right now, he has the luxury of, we talked to Eamon Zahabi, who says George in the gym basically 6 days a week, still improving on all areas to be a mixed martial artist. And now that he has the money in the bank, so to speak, to be able to fund that, it just makes sense that George would do that. But at the same time, we know that he's getting better. We know that he's probably training smarter than he's ever trained before. All the athletes that are at that TriStar gym elevating his game as well, because he's seeing what's modern. So the idea that you have this guy in his prime not competing against the Robbie Lawlers and the Tyron Woodleys of the division, I think it's kind of a shame.
Yeah, well, there's different aspects. He is a martial artist for life. I mean, we encourage people, go study martial arts. It's not only because it's cool and it's fun to move around and you learn that stuff, but learning how to learn makes you better at life. And that's what George will do his whole life. Then there's a combat sportsman. You know, he's not one of those right now. You can tickle that itch a little bit with a jiu-jitsu world championship or something somewhere. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu or something like that. And then there's the business of fighting. I don't think he likes that.
Yeah.
And I don't blame him. You've already made tons of money. You are a martial artist, but you're used as an entertainer and a performer and a racehorse and all of these things. So I don't know if he wants to be in the business of fighting. And I'm not, it sounds like he'd like to be a combat sportsman, but he's definitely a martial artist.
We talked about Michael Bisping and Gegard Mousasi. Michael Bisping, I guess he feels that the only way he's going to be able to get as much money as he can in the sport of MMA is by taking the toughest fights humanly possible against guys currently ranked somewhere in the top 10. Michael Bisping, it seems, he's not afraid of anybody. If Luke Rockhold was out and they needed somebody to step in against Chris Weidman on short notice, you know Michael Bisping would take it.
Yeah, Weidman would take it too. He recently said that Michael Bisping, he wouldn't even need a training camp for him. That was in response to Bisping saying Rockhold was going to win, mind you. But hey, man. Like Mike Bisping is a killer fighter. As much as we said George St-Pierre is a martial artist at heart, Bisping is a martial artist, but he's a fighter at heart too. This guy, you know, if you had to negotiate with him, it's going to be a scrap. You know, if you had to discuss where the fence was going to be as his neighbor, it's going to be a scrap. If you're going to have to, if you sit with him on a desk someday, maybe you or I will do that, it'll be a scrap because he's a scrapper. And because of that, I think he has made a lot of money. You mentioned it on 3 Rounds or earlier this week on Fight News Now. He was one of the highest paid athletes last year in fighting, so he's made money. I don't think he's even needing the money anymore. He needs someone to fight.
And when you look at building of stars, Michael Bisping never became a champion, but he's still talked about as one of the most respected fighters or one of the most hated fighters out there. But the fact is he always brings attention. Is that something the landscape of the fighters should look at? Do you just try to create heat? Donald Cerrone creates heat because he wears a cowboy hat and he goes out and he takes a beating and doles out a beating. And I think when not every fighter can have the same recipe.
Uriah Faber told you and I and Way 2 or 3 years ago that you either have to be an absolute winner, or you got to be crazy exciting, or you got to be a great personality. Ideally, all of those things. And hey, not everybody can do all those things. Mike Bisping can do them.
Michael Bisping is one of the best, but remember, Donald Cerrone could be one of the biggest stars after that fight with Rafael Dos Anjos. Don't go anywhere. More Fight News Now Extra is coming your way.
This program is brought to you by Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege, available December 1st, 2015.
The thing about Gary Goodrich, he never backed down from anybody.
Early in the morning, the problem started with fighters being arrested.
They were filling the Bell Center at the height of TKO with some of the best fighters in Canadian history.
It was an eye-opener that Canadians could do this.
You knew immediately there was something special.
And you just looked around and you went, holy, how are we going to do this?